Hello and welcome to all. Vladimir Putin is certainly one of the most influential and powerful heads of state on the planet, since he reigns almost without sharing on the Russian Federation. But what is less known about Putin is that he is also the richest man in the world, despite Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, or Bill Gates. The master of the Kremlin would indeed be at the head of a literally prestigious patrimony, which would amount, according to some, to more than $200 billion. This astronomical figure could grow even more, given that Vladimir Putin never stops amassing colossal fortunes in the exercise of power. Nevertheless, the Russian president has not lost his discretion as a former KGB spy, which means that his private life and his personal fortune remain jealously guarded secrets. We have therefore conducted our little investigation to find out more about the most unfathomable mystery of the Kremlin and try to find out more about the wealth of this modern-day czar. So, make yourself comfortable because today we're going to discover how Vladimir Putin spends his billions. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin was born on October 7, 1952, in the city of Leningrad, which is now called St. Petersburg. He is the third child of the couple formed by soldier Vladimir Spiridonovich Putin and his young wife Maria Ivanovna Putina. The Soviet Union had just come out of the Second World War, and the horrors of the war were still visible on almost everyone's face. Misery and destruction were everywhere, and little Vladimir's parents had to sweat blood and water at the Leningrad railway factory in order to feed their children. The young boy grew up in the misery of Stalinist communism, surrounded by loving and caring parents, but on the verge of destitution and poverty. Nevertheless, little Vladimir managed to study in very good conditions, while practicing various combat sports, including Sambo, a Russian martial art in which he particularly excelled. During his free time, the young boy who was passionate about humanities read works of philosophy and anthropology written by authors such as Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, or Lenin. Later, Putin would enroll in the University of Leningrad, where he would study law and where he would discover the works of other authors such as Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and Immanuel Kant. He finally graduated in 1975 and joined the KGB, the emblematic intelligence service of the former USSR, thus fulfilling a childhood dream. In fact, the young Vladimir had a real passion for the spy profession, and above all, he loved reading spy novels. When he was only 16 years old, he even went to the door of the local KGB branch in Leningrad and asked to be drafted as an agent. The guards laughed at this poor, puny-raged teenager while admiring his tenacity and bravery, but they could not know that their future boss was standing in front of them, because young Putin was determined to become a spy. So he joined the KGB for the city of Leningrad and its region, where he served for several years in the local counterintelligence service, gradually climbing the hierarchy. In 1985, the young KGB officer was transferred abroad to the city of Dresden, in GDR, where he worked as a consular employee, which in fact served as a cover. The young Vladimir Putin had indeed the mission to recruit spies as a major of the Russian Secret Service. But after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the dismantling of the KGB facilities in the GDR, the young spy returned to the fold, like so many of his colleagues. Vladimir Putin returned to Leningrad, but it is clear that he was not the same man, because his years of service in foreign countries had given him a strong personality and considerable experience in the field of behavioral psychology. The young lieutenant colonel of the KGB had indeed learned a lot of techniques and knowledge during the exercise of his profession of spy, and he sincerely hoped to be able to use them for the good of his country. This opportunity will be presented much faster than he thought, since he becomes an advisor for international affairs on Anatoly Sobchak, the mayor of Leningrad and former professor at the Faculty of Law. It was in 1991 that Vladimir Putin decided to enter politics, a choice he would never regret. His political ascension would indeed continue throughout the 90s, and Putin succeeded in establishing himself as one of the most influential personalities in Russia. With his political genius and his ingenious methods inherited from his past as a spy, Putin managed to rise to the highest levels of the Russian state. In 1996, he joined the presidential circle by being appointed Deputy Director of Presidential Affairs, and thus became a close collaborator of Boris Yeltsin, the President of the Russian Federation. In August 1999, Vladimir Putin was appointed Chairman of the government, the second most powerful position in the country, and he had already become more powerful than the president himself. It is therefore without much surprise that Boris Yeltsin decided to abdicate his place to the young and reckless pretender, who thus became interim president on December 31, 1999, before finally being made official on March 26, 2000. Vladimir Putin, the former KGB spy, thus acceded to power through his biggest door, and he was determined to keep it no matter what. In the space of 2 decades, Putin reigned like a czar over the Russian Federation, winning successive mandates with an overwhelming majority, and with the restoration of the power of the former Soviet Union, which disappeared in 1991, as his main leitmotif. The former KGB officer thus participated in the development of the Russian economy, fighting against the oligarchic system and disfavoring the billionaires who had become rich during the period preceding the fall of the former USSR. Using coercive techniques, sometimes very brutal, Putin manages to make himself respected and feared by these oligarchs, who then begin to obey him with their fingers. And thanks to this financial manna, the Russian president manages to develop a flourishing economy which allows the birth of a good number of SMEs, as well as millions of direct and indirect jobs. His popularity reaches then peaks because for the majority of the Russians, he represents this unexpected return of the greatness and the power of Russia, as well as its major role in the concert of nations. He is thus perceived as this strong man that we all needed to straighten the situation that had become catastrophic with the former leaders, too soft and too corrupt. And thanks to Putin, Russia was once again a superpower, feared and respected across the oceans, and a full participant in the world development. But if the majority of the Russian population admires Vladimir Putin and adores him to the highest degree, the oligarchs he has robbed do not show him so much affection. Because it must be said that the master of the Kremlin has not really been very tender with them, since he has virtually stripped them of half of their fortunes for some, while others have been outright ruined and thrown into prison by him. The case of the oligarch Mikhail Khodorkovsky is a perfect example of Putin's control over the wealth of these billionaires. Khodorkovsky, whose company Yukos represented 17 of Russian oil production, was indeed considered the richest man in Russia, with a fortune estimated at $3.7 billion. But in October 2003, the sky fell on the poor guy's head, who was convicted of fraud and tax evasion and sent to prison. His company was then literally dissolved, as well as his immense fortune, which probably ended up in Putin's pocket. The fate of Khodorkovsky was a real lesson for the other oligarchs of the country, who understood the necessity to share their wealth with the Russian president. A tacit agreement was thus concluded between the Russian billionaires and Vladimir Putin, and which consisted in sharing 50-50 their fortune with him. The deal was fair enough for them, because otherwise they risked losing everything and ending up in the gulag. Indeed, either you give half of your money to Putin or you lose all of it, as well as your freedom or even your life. The oligarchs chose the first option, which guaranteed them to keep a few billions not to be thrown to the wolves. Thus, according to this Machiavellian system, the master of the Kremlin would have become the richest man in the world, since he would have stolen no less than $200 billion. The calculation is very simple indeed. Just add up the net fortunes of all Russian oligarchs, then divide them by 2. This gives us the stratospheric figure of $200,000 million, which landed directly in the coffers of the Russian president. Of course, this fortune must be even more consequent, since Putin is still the only master on board in Russia, and he thus holds an almost absolute power. Nothing prevents him from making his money grow, especially since the economy of his country has become more flourishing and there are more business opportunities. Paradoxically, therefore, Putin has managed to enrich himself while contributing to the enrichment of the citizens of his country, which in itself reveals a unique feat in the history of human civilizations. But if Putin is at the head of such a fortune, what is the daily life of the richest man on the planet and probably in the whole universe? Indeed, with more than $200 billion in his pocket and in an era where almost everything is exchangeable, we can definitely say that Putin is the master of the world. He can indeed buy anything he wants, and the difference would not even be noticed on his bank account. Thus, Vladimir Putin can boast of owning one of the most luxurious residences in the world, the famous Putin Palace, or under its official name, the Cape Edo-Kopa residence. Located on the Black Sea in Gelendzhik in the Krasnodar region in the south of Russia. This mansion is indeed a veritable debauchery of luxury and splendor such as one has rarely seen in the country. With his extraordinary palace, Vladimir Putin is far superior to the greatest tsars who succeeded each other in Russia, even though they were known for their extreme wealth and the magnificence of their palaces. The Cape Edo-Kopa residence covers an area of 17,691 meters square, with an orchard of 2,500 meters square where orange trees are planted. The residence also has 2 heliports, an underground ice hockey rink, a large pond, a swimming pool, a casino, and a theater. The building is so large, in fact, that it even has its own power plant to cover the enormous energy needs. And to complete this almost surreal picture, the palace has a private harbor designed to accommodate Putin's yacht and guests, as well as a church and several buildings to house the staff. The total area of the palace covers 7,000 hectares, which is almost 39 times the size of the Principality of Monaco, and would have cost the small matter of 1.12 billion euros. Thus, even if he owns one of the most luxurious houses on the planet, Vladimir Putin would have spent only 0.5% of his total fortune to acquire it. But we must realize that Putin's palace is only the tip of the iceberg. The Russian president is said to own a good 20 palaces and luxurious residences scattered throughout the country, and probably also abroad. Vladimir Putin would also have a fleet of helicopters, which counts more than 15 state-of-the-art aircraft, as well as a collection of private jets, which are 43 in number. The master of the Kremlin also owns a large fleet of yachts and ultra-luxurious liners, whose total value could represent the GDP of a small African country. And that's it for today. What do you think of Vladimir Putin's incredible journey from the most abject poverty to the most exuberant wealth that amounts to hundreds of billions of dollars? Tell us in the comments. And if you liked this video, don't forget to put a like and subscribe and activate the notifications. See you soon for new discoveries out of the ordinary.